Welcome, traders. It is Sunday, the 12th of December. I'm just obviously prepping for this week's week ahead. And let's kick off. I'm going to have a look at the fundamental concerns. So obviously, there's ongoing concern about inflation. It isn't just in the US. I only talk about the US because whatever impacts the US impacts the rest of the world. It is rising. So in other words, we did get an update. It's not a surprise. It's now at 6.8 versus 6.2, I think, which is what it was in October. It's rising, but it is very much in line with the expectations. So this is straight out of the Fed. And so point is, there are reasons behind it. It is largely triggered by COVID. There are some ties. And I think once we get COVID in the back, in the rearview mirror, then we're likely to be able to determine, okay, what is here to stay? What's more of a concern? So for now, just keeping an eye on it, but not panicking is probably the best way to go. Then there's no further news from the SNB on any potential intervention in the Swiss franc. So that's fine. We can move on. And then a general global market bubble, which is basically the way I would view this is the markets. The US economy is actually looking incredible. The potential for growth over the next couple of years out of the US is phenomenal, despite even the potential inflation. In fact, the inflation is very much tied to the demand and the growth that's happening at the moment. But there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. But at the same time, I do think there are corrections, and any kind of dips in the market I would see as potential. For me, this is not financial advice, but I would see this as potential buying opportunities. But there's so much information in terms of job growth, just so much stuff coming out of the US that's incredibly positive. Okay, next up, the economic calendar this coming week, is insane. I don't know if that's just because they want to get all of it out, but it's across multiple currency pairs. I would take all of this seriously. It just means there's got to be a lot of volatility in the markets ahead of it'll slow down probably from the following week. I'm just drawing your attention here to anything that's potentially inflation related, especially FMC. What's their statement with regards to, are they panicking about inflation? Are they going to start, revealing what their intention is to taper? Is it going to be faster or than intended or earlier than intended? And all of that is likely to create big volatility in the market and could potentially produce strong US dollar moves. However, this week I'm anticipating a weaker dollar, but these are the kind of things that are tied to that. Will the language be soothing? Will it be, hawkish or dovish, but will it be soothing, or is it going to be alarming? And there's same stuff coming out of other countries. So other countries have also potentially got their eye on inflation. And so that's why this week, anything that really touches on that is going to be the focus. Now, finally, and this is just for fun, these mugs that I have, so I've got my own one. I've produced, and you may be interested in this, as sort of a Christmas special one. You may not be interested in that, but if it is, there is also a discount on this if you order it to the discount promo, and I'm going to send the link. I'll put the link below, and it might show up in the top of the screen if I can do that, but in the link in the description below, and the promo code is XmasMug21, and if you do that, you get a discount on it. So in fact, that discount applies to anything on the site that you like, but it's just fun stuff. It's really just meant to be trader gear that I like, so I produce it, and then other traders might enjoy it. So it is there, and if you want to just make sure you take advantage of that promo code, it should work fine. And that's it. I think let's go to the charts and see what's going on there. Okay, so let's have a look at the VIX. So we've come all the way back down, and this is not really a surprise to me. There's a constant failure here that I think that the trend has shifted from this ever weakening thing to potentially either a sort of sideways motion or potentially starting to push to the upside. But there's definitely this increase in volatility, and so big swings either way won't really surprise me. We can have a very active week even if we're down here on the lows, but just drawing your attention, saying, look, there's definitely a spike in volatility both up and down. We'll see that. So having a look at the US dollar index. So my expectation is, and this isn't necessarily based off technicals, I'm expecting a potentially weaker US dollar. And so the question is down to where, if it does go, is now down to 95.50, potentially down to 95, or potentially even as far as 94.50. So first of all, let me clarify that this is really probably more based off that weekly. That weekly is both quite bullish and at the same time also due for a bit of a correction down to the moving averages down towards this area. And so it's really just based off that. But overall, we are looking, at least to me, the chart looks strong. We have a stronger dollar, and so if this is a correction, I'd still presume at this point in time that that dollar is going to strengthen at some point. But also, if you just look over the last 2 weeks, been a lot of wild swings, and so trading it has been quite tricky. Moving on to the euro dollar. So euro dollar here is finishing off with some bullish signals here, but it's got to get above this 1.13, let's call it 50 level. And then if it does, after this consolidation, I can't see why, if it does manage to break out, why it won't have enough strength to hit up potentially as high as 1.1525. So looking at that on that 4 hourly, I'm really going to need to see it start to break outside of this range. And again, as I said, if it can break above this, especially above 1.14, I expect it to head a lot higher. But there is really that, I say, danger of a stronger dollar. If we didn't have that danger of a stronger dollar, we'd have a normal, natural correction or retracement, a normal, healthy retracement on the dollar would be temporarily weak just for a week or two, and then it would resume. But right now, it's really battling because it kind of does want to go ahead, but it does also need to have a correction. Looking at sterling here, we've started to see it slowing down on the price action on the daily, starting to push a lot higher here. You can see here on the 4 hourly starting to produce high lows, high highs. Okay, so for me initially this week, when I am looking at what is on my trading plan is going to be buying to the upside as a weaker US dollar, stronger cable. I'm looking for pullbacks and looking for buying opportunities to the upside. You can see the weekly chart as well, potentially starting to produce a bit of a swing low here, and a move up to 1.34, even higher up to 136 is possible. So the charts are showing that that's a possibility. I want to see what happens with regards to it. We already know inflation is an issue. Maybe the dollar will just take a breather for a bit. That's really where that caution comes in. You can see some, and then having a look here, for example, at Aussie dollar, US dollar, a bit of stalling here, which means it's actually struggling at this point. It could actually resume that trend to the downside, but I am, as you can see on the 4 hourly here, looking to see these starting. There was a nice little bullish breakout here, some good trading last week. I want to see if this will break out and continue. In fact, beyond 7 to a little bit higher. So that weekly chart looks really nice and bullish, but it's got to get past this level. And if it does, we could be heading up to 7.4. So, and again, that monthly chart as well. There really could be some good buying opportunities here if the markets just decide to pick a lane and stick to it. So Kiwi dollar, US dollar as well. Okay, really you just want to see these start to hit a little bit higher. So they are a bit tricky. I acknowledge there is a potential stronger US dollar. Dollar yen is going to do its own thing anyway. You can see it's really struggling with this level and therefore move to the downside down to 112.25 or 110. Also makes a bit of sense even here given the monthly, and that would give some shorting opportunities if that is going to be the case. Dollar Swissy will then do the same thing. The dollar Swissy is actually broken. Its bullish move to the upside is starting to look more and more bearish. It does support the idea on that 4 hour. I'm going to want to see it start to breach these lows, Alternatively, if it starts breaking back to the upside, I then just remain bullish on that as well. Dollar CAD has got its own issues going on as well. It wants to keep climbing to the upside. This is also broken. It had a really nice bullish move, and also here on the daily, it's been bullish this way. It has started now to break a little bit lower, breaching these lows. So it's either in a range mode now, or it's potentially bearish at this point in time. Okay. And so I'm going to want to see that potentially make up its mind. All right, and that's it for the majors. Let's go and have a look at the crosses, the cross pairs of interest. Okay, carrying on. So these are the FX charts of interest. So looking at pound yen. So quickly, on all the yen crosses, there's a little bit of some mixed direction on them. So I'm going to sort of play those as it lies. Some could hit lower, some could hit higher. There was, initially, I was looking for moves to the downside. I was looking moves to the upside, and it kind of has been all over the place. So, but looking at pound yen, it is looking quite bullish at this point. I do want to see it start to break above these previous highs, and then I'm looking for buying opportunities to the upside. Looking at GBPCAD, same thing again. There's no clear trend on the daily, but it is looking particularly bullish, and it's also produced a high low. And actually that weekly chart looking very bullish. So currently I like the nice trend up here. It's pretty clean, nice behavior, looking for retest, breaks above retest, looking for buying entries or entries to the upside there. Liking the look of that. I bet you there's some bullish divergence here. Let's have a look and see. Let's reduce it. Okay, yeah, strong bullish divergence there. So that's indicating a potential change in trend. Pound Aussie. So Pound Aussie had a really big correction to the downside, but it has produced, and I was actually looking for potential shorts, and I'm looking to see how that behaves. But this uptrend is now finished. It's now deciding what it wants to do. This could be a very deep correction. I'll be looking for buyers if price can break and retest above 1.8525. Alternatively, if it breaks below this, I'll be looking for sells. And so really just waiting on that. Overall, the price action looks clean. It just has to decide on a direction. And I'm looking at Aussie Kiwi here, 4 hour here, just done a really nice break and a potential retest here. So there could be some good buying opportunities on this. Overall, it's looking nice and bullish on the monthly and very nice and bullish on the weekly, certainly up to 1.06. And finally, Kiwi CAD. This one in a downtrend on the daily, and there is a potential it's going to move up, retest, and then continue down. On the weekly, however, it is starting to look a little bit more divergent. So let's just place that level in there. And so there is a possibility it's going to find some support and head up to the top. So again, on that weekly here, on that 4 hourly, I beg your pardon, I'm looking, there's some nice breaks above this, and there could be some good continuations to the upside. So there's a little bit of a contradiction between the two, but initially I'm going to be looking for buys to the upside, and then we'll see how it plays out there. So if it does break back below these levels, then I'll be looking for shorting opportunities to the downside. And that's it. Let's move on to the commodities. Let's have a look at precious metals. Gold. Again, last week I was talking about how there's not a lot of clear direction. In principle, in theory, in principle, if there's going to be fears stoked, then gold is potentially going to climb, but it's not really showing much signs of that. Now, I've had it in once or twice this year where during the week it has suddenly kicked off into a trend. So sure, but again, I would rather be interested in this once it starts to break above these previous highs. I'm starting to become bullish, certainly above 1800. Otherwise, below that, I remain bearish, looking for shorting opportunities here. Then going to silver, you can see silver down here at $22, very significant level within a range, and therefore the possibility of this going back up to the top of the range, it is possible. All right, it is. And again, here I'd start to look for buying opportunities. The price action's a bit more cleaner on silver. Price action breaking above these highs, that's going to work for me. Copper, very much range bound, not looking that strong. A lot of red in these candles, a lot of indecision, very choppy. So overall, probably going to stay away from that. And that's really it. So then moving on to crude oils, and then starting off with, just in terms of that, having a look at the GCSI. Correction down to these lows, bit of a bullish inside candle here, and this could, well, if we break above the highs of this and a break above the highs of the previous candle, could signify another move back up to the top. So for a little bit of a bullish candle here within the moving averages. So it's not super strong, but these are potential signs of a bullish move to the upside. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. Obviously, if we start to break back below these lows, I remain bearish on that. It's not unreasonable, especially if we go have a look at, say, West Texas crude. It's not unreasonable that there is a possibility that with reserves being loosened, that we might see a drop in this, and this I'm very curious to see. So what we've produced here in terms of this is a potential bullish move to the upside. So bullish candles produced here, which could show buyers coming in, and in this area that actually makes sense, but I need to see a continuation of that. So I'm going to be looking for high lows and high highs on that 4 hourly, and potentially not getting in immediately, but waiting to see a little bit more of that starting to break above these highs. This is Brent crude, looking to maybe get back up above those highs before I become bullish, but we do have a swing low here. It's looking more bullish than bearish at this point in time. It is a downtrend on the daily, so we have a potential continuation to the downside on the daily, but the monthly and weekly looking bullish. So the question is, which one is it going to be? And I would say, therefore, if we start to break above these highs, I become bullish. Break back below those lows, then I remain bearish. And there are fundamental reasons why it could head lower, but it has been really bullish up until now. So it really is a wait and see before, and the 4 hours probably going to be the clue on it. Okay, looking at some of the other commodities of interest. Again, sugar has not disappointed in how much junk it really is in terms of that, but I'll tell you what, it is now starting to look more bullish than bearish. Okay, this is a relatively strong bullish candle compared to previous price action. This may well have been its consolidation, and it's now getting ready to resume its move back up to 21. So I'm going to keep an eye on that, but it's starting to show signs of bullishness. Coffee here, again, we spoke about this bearish divergence here. It's starting to look more and more bearish, potentially range bound, so treating it as range bound first, but I would say if we do have a solid breakout candle below here on the 4 hour, we're then going to look, it makes complete sense to me, especially looking at the monthly here. This looks like, look, I really want to go down to 200, maybe even as far as 160. Okay, so I'm going to be prepared for shorting opportunities on coffee for now. Wheat actually starting to find its feet a little bit here. It's really exhausted up here, so it might be range bound in this area or potentially correct down to 700. Not expecting it to correct, I'll be surprised, but because it is showing some good signs of exhaustion. It's back into this area, and it should have produced a bullish candle, should have produced that, so possibly by the end of next week. So I'll keep an eye on that. Cotton coming back down, producing that bullish candle, bit of a swing high on the monthly. So this is similar to what we've had a look over the previous ones, with potentially a correction down to 100 or a little bit further, even down towards 90 is feasible, but I'd have to see a break below these lows. Otherwise, my expectation is it's going to try to hold, tread water, and then resume that uptrend. All right, moving on to the global indices. Okay, so last week I spoke about, needing to see the markets recover, and indeed they did. Look, really, it's important to talk about how strong that recovery is, closing near the highs as well, and it's big. We had that previously in June. So lots of buyers just waiting, and of course we've got the Santa Claus rally, we've got all that. The question now for me is, how are we going to cope as we approach this level where we've encountered resistance, plus the overall kind of stumbling that we've been encountering. So I'm cautious as we get up to these levels because I want to see us kind of potentially break through those levels. And then, of course, and again, that 4 hour there were some really good trades this week, some solid breakouts. I'd like to see that, a continuation of that, but I want to be aware of where we are in relation to previous prices. Should we, on the other hand, see a big, strong bearish candle start to break below these lows, then I might look for some shorting opportunities. But the dangers of these levels with buy orders being there, and quick, sharp bounces remains. Okay, here we can see the S&P back up to these old highs. Question is, how will they cope? So if the market in the future, in the next few months, is going to be weak, there's going to be some failure at these levels. We're going to see it drop back below. And the amount of failure is going to be significant. That'll tell us what's going to happen. But I'm leaning towards that. It's a possibility, but I think that's the least likely one. I really want to see if the market trades sideways or manages to keep going. Okay, Nasdaq as well, potentially up here at these levels. It's already stumbling a little bit where it is. I want to see it break up and keep going. One of the things I do want to talk about, all right, so we had a correction. If we just talk about this, I actually have highlighted these years. We've got a bit of time. I'll go into that quickly. We had a move and a correction, move, correction, move, correction, move, correction, move, correction, move, correction, and move. The reason I mention that is that the more corrections we have, in theory, well, it depends on how bad the reaction is, but what it means is the market is getting a chance to relax, and this is or to recoup its energy, and that's on the weekly. So in other words, if we have no correction, one becomes more and more overdue, and that becomes a problem. At the moment, we are getting plenty of those, and I wanted to quickly talk you through most of these. I've just put all these lines in here basically on kind of the December, January line, give or take a day here or there, and basically just talking about how we can sometimes we had a bit of a move lower 2018, and we rallied straight up from that. We had COVID was our first introduction here, was a bit of a drop in the market there. Otherwise, the market rallied on, just generally globally. We haven't really had any massive stumbles since then, and there's no real reason to expect that to happen now. The only thing that could actually trigger that, as crazy as it sounds, would be some kind of a new, not even just Omicron, but some other kind of a variant, or a war breaking out, for example, a war breaking out, which would give us potentially a big correction, or a massive shift in inflation, something right out of the blue that's huge, several basis points, or potentially some kind of a massive political instability. Those are the only things that I can think of. I'm not trying to be Black Swan here. A Black Swan would be a coup for the US government and literally having the existing democracy overthrown. That's a Black Swan event. Could happen. It's now more likely to happen than ever in the last 200-300 years. But I'm just putting those out there. Otherwise, the markets are looking strong. That's where I'm going with this. Markets looking strong, not expecting anything, and we've had a couple of corrections. Therefore, the markets actually have quite a bit of juice, and therefore I'm somewhat optimistic. Overall, the economy in terms of jobs numbers, certain things, yes, inflation's there, but all the other red flags are not really showing up in other places. And so the markets are still looking nice and bullish, and jobs are doing well, spending is up, and so it's weird, there are green shoots in amongst the red flags. So it's new. And so therefore, I remain optimistic. But the markets, I would love to see them just correct for a little bit and then resume, take a bit of a breather. But in a way, when I look at the weekly, they kind of have been doing that. Okay, so here's the Russell. Managed to find a bit of a bullish candle within that range, which is what I spoke about. Breaking below that range, in line with bigger drops on the other side, would signify a bigger correction to the downside. And so far, it doesn't seem to be the case. My expectation this week is to see if this can work its way back up to the top of that range. Stay within that range for now. Looking at the FTSE also managed to move up to the highs here, and this is one of the weaker markets, and so this is looking good. But can it get past that? And if it can, if we get a bullish week past that, the clues as to global stability is really when you look at the other markets, for example, the FTSE and the DAX. If they are managing to kind of hold, then because they're usually quite skittish, and if the US starts getting wobbly, then they kind of react with that. But if they're holding, even when the US stuff is wobbly, then it's a good sign. Okay, DAX also looking relatively bullish here. I'm not too concerned about it. I want to see these markets push and continue past their highs. What could happen is, and obviously there's not unlimited outcomes, but there could be a move up, another reaction to the recent highs, and a drop. So by the end of the week, we're back down at the lows of the previous week. Excuse me, but a really good sign would be to see the market starting to push through and close higher on the weekly candles, not just break to new highs, but stay above on those new highs. And to see that in multiple markets would be a really good sign. Rejections and failures and sudden drops for whatever reason, and we do have news this week that could potentially cause a bit of that. Or if the market stays where it is, that's not even a sign of instability in my mind. I don't think so. Okay, Nikkei also managing to hold where it is, bit of a bullish indecision candle. So there's no real clues in this. It's just saying, look, I am where I am. And the ASICs out of Australia also coming back down to the lows and producing a bit of a bullish candle and failing a little bit at the highs. So there's indecision here. You can see this. So basically, it's not offering a lot of clues, but as I said, I think there's reasons to be optimistic. Okay, moving on to the equity stocks of interest. Okay, starting off with Royal Mail. Look at this consolidation. One of the things I do love about stocks, consolidations can lead to breakouts, can lead to really good stuff. And so breakout to the upside here could be particularly profitable. And it's a possibility here. I'm not going to be glasses half empty today or that pessimistic. Amex. Okay, so Amex has managed so far, and the weekly has managed, although it did dip below here, it has actually managed to produce a bullish swing low. So it's got to make its way back up to that 180 level. It's got to do that. That's what I'm looking to see if it does. Should it drop back down below those lows, then yes, then it's becoming more and more likely that 140, 134 is now on the cards. That is a relatively positive sign. The question is it just a bounce off these lows because the market dropped and then buyers came in? Or is it, and therefore the market will, so again, this next week will give us clues. It'll be either be an indecision candle, a move higher, or a bearish candle. And an indecision or bearish candle are not, ideal. ARC. So ARC, I think it's significant because we did breach these lows. Okay, we have done it. We've got a monthly downtrend. That is significant. It takes a long time to produce a monthly downtrend. So in order for me to see that this has shifted, these are significant highs here, around that 125 mark. I need to see that happen. I need to see price get back up above these levels and hold above these levels. You can see it's already produced a bit of a lower high here. It always, stocks, they're quite unique because they always compared to, say, currencies, for example, because they always have buyers down on these lows. And we'll have to see how that goes. This is a trend at this time. So we're going to have to see if we can get back over that level. If we can't, we might have a rejection candle. Could be a continuation to the downside. So let's see how that goes. AT&T, I don't expect much from this. I think there's some fundamental issues. I have my concerns, but I don't want to get into those just yet. At this time, I expect AT&T to continue down to 22 and 21 and potentially further. It's in a really good area for it to possibly turn. It's had level of support here in the past, but the price action here is showing no real signs of stopping. I'd have to see a strong bullish candle, which would indicate then buyers coming back in, it's likely to go up, and it could do that. Here, I'm more likely thinking that one possibility is it goes all the way down to 22, then bounces back up to 24, and then continues down, and that could be a case. So I'd need to see a strong bullish candle here, which would indicate a shift back up, a change in trend, and we'll see how that goes. Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is pretty stable. It's within that range, produced a bullish candle and a high low, and it's within this consolidation. I have to highlight this because this could be really cool. This could be amazing. This could be building up to a consolidation breakout. This means that we could be here for a while and then this could burst out and just keep going. So when I talk about there being this possibility that over the next year, the markets haven't even finished being bullish because the groundwork, the infrastructure bill, all the money being spent, we'll see how much of that actually gets released, because I know that, there's attempts to try to undermine it. But if that stuff goes out there and that money goes into the middle income and lower income brackets and is put into the infrastructure and people are finding work, they're going to be spending money and the market could just boom, it could be insane. And so to me, this will be a clue. Absolutely, there's no way this can break out and trend higher if that isn't in tie. It's correlated with that. Okay, BP. Okay, BP, interesting, having produced that bullish candle here off these lower highs, indicating it might have found a footing. I don't think this trend is strong on the 4 hour. It needs to see a climb higher. I'm not seeing a super strong trend. Might be able to make its way back up to 30, but if there are big drops below here, then obviously I remain bearish on it. Exxon will be similar to that. I don't really see these as hugely beneficial kind of moves. They've got some strong barriers to overcome up here, but that's bullish. That bullish indicates it's got some juice, but look at that exhaustion there. So the question is, can it get past that? Those are the battles that it's going to be facing. Coca-Cola. Range bound. So we were talking about this, or I spoke about this, and I was expecting potentially for that went lower, but it's managed to come right back up. So it's just range bound, really, at this point in time. High, low, back into this area of resistance. I need to see a bullish candle close up here. So in this coming week, I'm very interested to see what will happen. Will we get that solid, strong finish across the boards, closing much higher, or will we battle and then stay where we are or close lower? That will give me clues as to what's going to happen over the coming week. So it's one of those things that as it unfolds, there might be some shorter term trades. As an investor, for me personally, I'm not really going to be changing my positions anyway. In principle, I'm still bullish for the longer term anyhow. But for trading, it's possibly even to just kind of watch from the sidelines, just in case of increased volatility with that much red news coming out. Could be tricky. Oh, look at this one. Okay, so General Motors, look at that bullish monthly candle so far, disregarding this failure here. And that really strong bullish candle, it's got to get past here. Clearly, there's a bit of level here, but that, ladies and gentlemen, is not a sign of weakness. Okay, it's not a sign of weakness. It's interesting. JP Morgan Chase coming back into these lows, could potentially hold here. Again, a drop below into this level around 150 is really where it starts to question. It's kind of where it's going to go from there. Metas, we live in interesting times because we are really trying to see if we're at the beginning of something big or if we just had a weekly correction there as opposed to a monthly correction. All right, so here we go. Meta actually managed to bounce off that level very nicely off 300, almost just tapped it there and has come up. There's a bit of indecision there, which led to a bit of a drop and a bounce. That weekly now starting to look a little bit more, starting to look like it might hold above that level. We will see. I mean, the longer term picture for Facebook is not so much dependent on the individual users per se, not in the way that it was originally. They've got so many business partners and so many other forms of income that isn't expressly tied just to the original users or the way that it used to be. So Facebook for years to come could still have some good revenue. They are certainly starting to get involved in, there are some concerns about them involved in influencing politics and all kinds of other stuff, which is a bit crazy. But anyway, so I'm going to say for now, I expect them to potentially hold above that. That's not a strong finish, but it was a good sort of bounce. So let's see what happens with that. It's still range bound at this point. Interesting to see what happens there. Morgan Stanley, consolidation, also managing to hold, and it's been really, really strong. So what I would need to see here is a bullish move and a close above this, almost a breakout of this little range you got going on here. Look at all this indecision here. If we finish close bearishly down here, we're going to see a deeper correction down towards 80 at some point. Okay, Apple. Apple is unstoppable. This is just insane. I mean, and this is more with admiration than anything else. It is absolutely unstoppable. I mean, if I'm trading, day trading, for me, it is just so much safer, I would think, to trade Apple than anything else. But it's just disregarding kind of things, these kind of exhaustion candles here, which I spoke about, finished, close right at the top. Yes, there will be corrections, obviously, at some point, but this is not slowing down. Okay, and so not slowing down. It's now overextended on the daily. Bit of a correction like one of these two over here, perfectly acceptable. Weekly candle quite nice and big. I would expect a bit of slowdown here in this area, but 200 is now in its sights. It might just go up, and the bullish candle looking very bullish now. So 200 might be in its sights, which is insane economically. That is just mind-blowing. But it could even slow down anywhere over here. It's done a move. It's now should take a bit of a breather before continuing. But overall, man, this is strong. What I am hearing anecdotally is just talk of there being a generally the number of companies that are above, say, their 50 moving average or just their trend is starting to deviate away. So some of the companies like Apple are doing really well, but not all the companies are doing as well. So it's a bit of a deviation from that. Let's see how that turns out. Nvidia, a bit of a correction down, nice little indecision candle, a little bit overextended here. I'm going to say that there's still room for this to correct to the downside here. That can be an indecision candle to the upside. I'm going to see if we close below that. We'd have to get back up above these highs for me to remain bullish. I think there's a possibility here. This might still want to go a little bit lower. Let's see how that goes. PayPal. Okay, PayPal is slowing down. Bit of a bullish signal here. It's at these old lows here. This is its first attempt to climb higher. So this is the first attempt. It may fail, but this is now at least the first time I've seen price move down and slow down. It's got 207 in its sights, and if it's lucky, it'll head back up to 233. But if it isn't, it's potentially going to continue down below that. But there we go. There's the first sign of sellers taking a bit of a breather. Potential buyers going to come in and push it up a little bit higher. Tesla, having dropped a little bit lower, you see now here's the difference. For me, Tesla is looking as though maybe it's found a bit of a base and might be up. I still think it's got to come down and tap 900, and this is just a bit of a mess over here. I think it should do that, but there's lots of green shoots here. So I'm expecting at least buyers to come in and try to push a little bit higher. I'm a little bit 55% bullish versus 45% bearish that this is going to be the case. Spider. broken down, slowing down. But yeah, I think 100 is a fair point for this to head down to. It looks very nice and bearish on that 4 hour. So if it doesn't have a double bottom around here 107, I think it's going to continue down to 100. We're going to have to see how that goes. So there's just a difference in some of these. They're not all necessarily in the same kind of race. They're all doing their own thing. And I think that there could be some significance to that. It's just they're starting to shift out of sync with each other. Okay, so Vanguard as well here, bullish, strong bullish candle. It's got to get past that. But I have to say, man, beautiful, perfect break and retest. This could go higher. If we can get through that, it can go higher. So Vanguard, I'm amazed. I'm very impressed. It looks really cool. And actually, it's tied to similar to the S&P. Okay, moving on to Treasuries, bonds. Let's have a look at this. Who's buying? No one's really buying this week. So just showing a bit of optimism on that. Didn't really go anywhere. There is a base here. So this is going to be for me to see if we can stay above or below that Euro bubble as well. Strong move up in the month. Excuse me, November not really going anywhere, and not really going anywhere. So no one's really buying. So that just also is indicating confidence in the market. So we'll see a little bit of a pause here. It's a pause, lots of bullishness below there, and a drop below that, and closing lower would be significant. My thinking is still that it's going to probably work its way back up to the top of the range, but we'll see. But yeah, not showing a lot of concern at this time. Cryptos. Okay, so Bitcoin here is attempting to turn around and work its way back up to 60. That 4 hour is going to be what I'm going to be watching. It looks like it's holding where it is at the moment. That's a really strong recovery at this point. It's a higher low. Yep, I'm more bullish right now on this. I'll be watching the 4 hour. If we break below these, we'll probably be heading back down to those. It is now Sunday night. I'm more bullish than bearish on this. I think there may well be a point now where it's going to attempt to climb a little bit higher up to 55,000. But let's see. If it does break below here, then it's back down to these lows. So far, this is just, those are signs of it holding and therefore not looking weak. Ethereum also holding where it is at this point in time, also a good sign. Let's have a look at NEO. And yeah, okay, and this one's right down at its lows. Not much further for it to go. And it's also starting to head into an uptrend on the 4 hour. Cardano, again, also down at these lows, also trying to climb a little bit higher. So for these, I'll be looking for them to break those highs to get a bit of that bullishness. If they can't, then they'll probably reject and head low. There's lots of signs, a little green shoots of price coming in here and finishing off on Dogecoin. There we go. Also here, it's attempting to turn out. So it's got to break above these highs for me to see, and that'll attract more buyers. It'll start to climb from there. You can see the strong consolidation here. If it fails to do that, it's going to break those lows. There'll just be further downside to this. So it is a bit of a wait and see. And I'm just, like I said, just that nudge, a little bit more bullish on it than bearish. Okay, at a glance, summary, the market potentially going to be able to climb higher. If there's a big drop low, let's say we get, really news comes out that unsettles the market, or there's tapering, advanced tapering, or something, some change to that, there could then obviously be a deeper correction to the market. So quite a few of them are sort of doing their own thing, and there's some mixed signals. There's quite a lot of bullish signals. So the question is, how will the market deal with that? That's it, ladies and gents. I don't forget, obviously, my plan this week is to be doing morning scans. So that's where I'll be I'll see those live updates. But otherwise, I want to wish you a wonderful week, and I'll be doing a video next week. And thank you very much.